Okay, guys, this is it. Last assignment for the year. There will only be one this week, and then next week there will be no assignment. Just getting previous assignments that you haven't done finished, and if you are caught up, enjoy your days. These 4 days from assignment list AQR. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do is kind of important, which has to do with a lot of project management stuff. Okay, so a lot of all these graphs are ways of organizing or planning events with constraints, and constraints can be like manpower, time, money, things like that, and all this is used in project management type stuff. So this is the math behind it, and a lot of it's done with computer programs with algorithms that use these circuits, graphs, maps, all these things we've been doing. And this is one of the ones that we're going to do here. And the assignment on this one particularly can help you in college when you're trying to plan out your course of action or checking your advisor to get all the requirements done in your degree plan, whether it's college, technical school, or whatever. All right, so here we're going to plan like an end of the year party. All right, and we got some things we got to do. We got activities, and our constraint for this one will be time. All right, in hours. Okay, so half an hour to plan music, an hour to download music, buy groceries and decorations, 2 hours, bake a cake and prepare food, an hour and a half, set up 2 hours. Okay, so just reading this paragraph here, since there are several classmates helping, some of these tasks can be performed at the same time. So basically they're telling us manpower isn't going to be an issue. So remember, when somebody undertakes a big construction project like 281, okay, manpower, money, time, all those constraints can happen at the same time. But we're just going to deal with one, which is just the timing. Okay, for instance, people can begin setting up decorations while the cake is baking. All right. However, you cannot bake a cake or set up until after shopping has taken place. So, right, you need stuff, you need ingredients. Okay, so there's going to be an order to these events. And you cannot begin downloading music until you know what songs you want to download. Okay, the following activity graph can be used to help organize this information. So they made this activity graph here that represents this schedule. Okay, so if you just kind of look at it, the A, B, C, all the way through E, and notice that they have the start and finish on there. So in your assignment, you're required to put a start and finish. A lot of students have overlooked that. So you need a start little icon and then a finish icon. Okay, so basically, we're just going to answer these questions one by one, look at how they came up with this activity graph, and then you will make your own. All right, so what do the numbers in this graph represent? Well, it's pretty easy. The time it takes to do an activity in hours. All right, so that's what the numbers mean. All right, the weights. Okay, why is there an arrow from activity A to activity B, but not from activity A to activity C? Well, if we look at activity B, okay, B is dependent on A. Oops. For one. All right, and C has no dependency on A, comma. All right, so if we look at the graph here, we got A to B, all right, which B cannot be done without going to having done A first, right? So what is activity B? Download music, plan and list. So plan the songs you want, okay? Once you have a plan, then you can download the music, right? Okay, so that's what it's talking about. That's why it's there. But if you look at C, C is buying groceries, all right? So C isn't dependent on your music planning, okay, or even downloading it. All right, that's independent of it. So it's That's why there's no arrow from A to C, because C is not dependent on A, but B is dependent on A as far as the activities, and that's how they constructed this graph. Okay, so 3. Beginning at a start, there are several paths through the graph, following arrows, and at the end of at the end at the finish, at finish. Okay, there it is. Can say it right. For each path, calculate the total time required to perform all the activities along the path. All right, so there's 3 paths, and I'm looking at these end paths here, and I'll just label it like so. So this one will be path 1, this will be path 2, this one will be path 3. All right. We want to calculate the total time. All right, and that's not a hard thing to do. So let's look at path 1. So path 1 has a total time, if you add them up, of 1.5 hours. All right, so if we look at it, half an hour to plan the playlist, and then an hour to download the music. That's an hour and a half. If we look at path 2, that's going from start, C, D, to finish. All right, C activity is buying groceries, and D is baking the cake and preparing food. All right, if we add all those up, that's going to be 3.5 hours. All right, and then path 3 starts at the start, goes to C, and then branches down to E, then back up to the finish. All right, so 2 and 2 make 4 hours. So path 3 is a total of 4 hours. All right, what is the minimum amount of time required to perform all these activities? Okay, so from start to finish, to get everything done, what is the minimum amount of time required? Well, that's going to be path 3. Okay, we have 2 hours to do the shopping for decorations and groceries, and then the setting up. All right, so those 2 things take the longest to do, so that'll be the minimum time of the project. All right, so from link to end, this whole project will take 4 hours because that's the longest path there. All right, so all the activities can be done within that 4 hours. All right. Which path corresponds to the minimum time? All right, so be careful with this wording because there's a lot of misconceptions with this. Which activities are along this path? All right, so when I'm talking about minimum time, they're talking about the longest path. All right, I kind of said it in answer for 4, the explanation of answer 4. All right, so the minimum time is the path that takes the longest. All right, because that's going to affect your planning for the whole party. All right, so even though it says minimum, you're looking at the longest path, and that was path 3. All right, so there's no way to get path 3 any shorter than the 4 hours. You got to do the shopping, and then you got to set up. All right, so that's the longest path. That's the minimum time for the entire project. All right, so again, project time, the longest path. All right, that's the minimum amount of time. Is no shorter than your longest path. And that can be a little bit of confusing, but if you look at it, you really can't do anything else without either adding on to that time with doing the shopping and setting up. All right, so again, so that's what it says. So minimum time is the longest path in your project. So when they're talking about minimum, the smallest time to complete the entire project, and then if you're looking at individual paths, okay, it's the longest path equals your minimum time. So again, try to absorb that a little bit. So a lot of times I would get the answer on this particular question to be path 1. Well, no, path 1 does not finish the project. It's only an hour and a half. We still have, we haven't even finished the grocery shopping. So yes, we have our playlist and our music, but the grocery shopping isn't even done yet. Is the party ready? It's not. So your project isn't done. So the minimum time to complete the project again, is the longest path. All right, enough of that. So, just to kind of answer it, so which activities are longest path? All right, that's going to be path 3. Okay, and that is groceries and sit up. All right, so which activities could take a little longer to complete without affecting the total completion times? All right, so if we look at the paths here, so we know path 1's an hour and a half, so we can actually take time to plan a better playlist or even add more music, which will take more time downloading. Okay, so we can add some time to path 1. We can add some time to path 2. Path 2 is 2 and 1.5, which is 3.5 hours, so we have an extra 30 minutes while people are grocery shopping and setting up. Okay, so the 30 minutes is tacked on to the activity D, which is baking the cake, right? So I guess make a few other cupcakes or something else, I don't know. All right, so activities A, B, and D are the activities that could take a little bit more time on those paths. So let's kind of list them out. So activities A, B, and D can be extended as long as it does not exceed the 4 hours. Okay, so again, like I said, since that longest path is our minimum project time, if we look at any of these activities that we're doing, so let's say that we decide to bake a second cake, and that puts more time because there's one oven, right? So activity D, you have 30 minutes for extra baking time, right? And let's say it takes an hour for this extra cake you're gonna do, or cupcakes. Well, that is going to bump activity D to 2.5 hours, or makes the whole thing, your longest path now, 4.5 hours. Okay, so now you've just increased the entire time of your project by doing that. Okay, so no longer path 3 would be the longest, it'd now be path 2 if you're going to bake another hour for cakes or whatever. So that's what I was trying to say there, and number 7 there. Okay, I think I skipped number 6. Oh no, I answered number 6, but I wrote it on the wrong part. So my apologies. Let me get my magic pen here. And like it never happened. Awesome. Okay. So activities that cannot be delayed without increasing the minimum time for completion are called critical. All right. And I just want to note that the minimum. Let me see here. All right, guys. Every now and then it gets stuck. There we go. I got to do that. Okay. So the minimum. Okay. When they're talking about that there that I've underlined, that right there, they're talking about project time. All right, and there's a name for this. It's called critical activities. Okay, this is your critical activities. Any kind of addition to this path, any of the activities on this path, any kind of addition to those activities will increase your entire project time. Okay, it's also known as the critical path. All right, so if you want to save time on a project, if there's a way you can reduce the amount of time on that, then do that. Okay. But however, if you reduce it too much, then the other ones may become a time constraint, and a different path can now be your critical path. If we were able to get the grocery shopping done in an hour, right? If we're able to get that done in an hour, which is C, and then let's say set up in 30 minutes. Now it's 1.5 hours to do that. Okay, no longer your critical path. Path 2 would be your critical path, and now those activities are the critical activities. Okay, so again, the critical path, the critical activities, if they take longer, that increases your project time. If they're shorter, that can decrease your project time as long as it isn't shorter than another path. then that other path that becomes a longer path is now the project time. All right, so this is all project management theory. All right, so here's a glimpse into your assignment that's coming up. All right, you're going to use these classes, so it's very relevant for college. All right, so just to kind of explain that prerequisites are classes you must take before the previous class. Okay, so they have the classes you're taking on the left, and then prerequisites to those classes on the left. So if you look at your two lists, you're going to start at Calculus 1. All right, and obviously you can't take Calculus 2 until you've taken Calculus 1. That's why Calculus 1 is a prerequisite. All right, so some of these classes will be dependent on the others. Okay, however, Calculus 1 has nothing to do with speech, right? So you're not going to have to take Calculus 1 then speech. All right, so that's kind of the hint there when you're drawing this graph. And just go back and look at this and kind of see how they constructed this from the list here. Okay, so you're going to make that schedule. Here's what they want you to do. Okay, please don't forget to start and finish squares. A lot of students do that. Don't lose points. All right, and then answer everything it's asking for here. All right, guys, thank you.